it's hard to understand because we're so desperate for success at times, but don't become too desperate for success that we forget how good the journey is along the way as well.
Welcome to Level Up with the Greater Game, where we give you tips and tricks to make sure we can level up your skills and game on the pitch and take it to the next level. Today I'm joined by Izzy Christiansen and Zara Musker, and I'm Jordan Thomas, one of the mental health coaches in Nuffield Health. Today we're going to go through questions, conversations and around positive affirmations and talking to oneself positively. How important is it to have a positive mindset day to day during your games?
Throughout football, especially throughout life in general, with obviously lots of setbacks and adversity, that how you talk to yourself, the self-confidence and belief that you have is really important, especially in my point of view, the life that I've gone through and the sort of things that I want to achieve. Without that sort of positive affirmations and self-belief, I wouldn't be where I am now.
Izzy, what about yourself?
We speak to ourselves the most. If you can have a good way of talking to yourself, positive self-talk, then likelihood is that you're going to have a more positive mindset on the pitch. You know, you play sport, you work in sport in particular, you learn a lot of skills that you can transfer to day-to-day life as well. Sport's all about setbacks, all about comebacks, and it's all about trying to win ultimately, but also the journey along the way. And I think what you do look back on and enjoy the most is overcoming personal challenges.
I guess it's that classic saying, right, that you are your own harshest critic during periods of time, and getting that challenge of facing those negative thoughts and trying to bring in that positive self-talk. Is there any kind of ways and tips or tricks that you've used in the past to maybe turn the volume down during those difficult periods?
I think for me it's kind of just seeing your own journey and kind of going back to the beginning and where you started. And obviously as we go through life there's lots of challenges, but there's also a lot of people around as well. And when you become your harshest critic inside, that's when you can reach out to other people. Just kind of reminding yourself of the journey that you've been on.
Yeah, I think it's something which we all need to do better is probably look back at where we've come from and where we are now. Self-talk is something that is so important, and using things like imagery, how you imagine yourself stepping out into a sports pitch or into a sports situation.
When you were younger, when you didn't have the fortune of knowing where you're going to be or what you both achieved, did you find yourself having a lot of negative self-talk as a younger footballer?
Everyone's journey is really difficult, and I think being in present, kind of getting through those things. Obviously I said when you're younger it's a little bit difficult, it depends on what tools you've got. You might not know about kind of self-reflection and imagery and things like that. So I think it's best to be reaching out to those closest to you. Yeah. There's always role models around, especially this day and age.
As humans, we often try and find somebody else who's doing the same thing or done the same thing, and we always want that sort of allyship. And I think that's important, especially when you do an individual sport, when you do a team sport as well. I think competition is healthy within team sports, but as soon as you let that take over your mindset, then I think you probably lose sight of your own performance a little bit. Fundamentally, the power of physical activity is so important for the way that we feel about ourselves, how that can benefit our lives and the people around us. I think a healthy mind is a happy mind. It's really important to understand what makes you feel good, what doesn't make you feel good, and having the courage to walk away from that, as well as enjoying your life, because we only have one, don't we?
You both mentioned in terms of using techniques such as imagery as one example. What is your kind of understanding, Zara, of imagery? How would you kind of get into that mode, and when would you use it?
Yeah, there's lots of different kind of types of imagery, to be honest. It depends, are you in action, out of action? So obviously on the court or on the football field you can use imagery from a point of view if you've kind of been in this situation before and this is how it's played out. But for me massively is kind of looking back at pictures, looking back at videos, analysis. I tend to go back to that sort of stuff.
Is that anything you would use not just on the football field? Would you ever use something like imagery in your own personal life, maybe a form of meditation or grounding at all?
I live a very active and busy lifestyle, having gone from being a professional footballer to now a pundit in the media, and I also coach as well, a under-16 team. So there's a lot of moving parts in my life, so I find using meditation and yoga as sort of centering activities. You touched on it there, Zara, around being present and being still. I think there's a real power in that, to sort of take a breath and understand, that we are living a very hectic lifestyle and everyone's out there just trying to do their own thing and trying to get by, and in different ways. And I think sometimes we forget to look at the art of being still and understanding where you're at, where you want to go, recenter yourself, refocus the mind, because often we fill our cups up too much. And I think there's a real piece in being courageous enough to say no to things that don't align with how you want to feel. And like I said, experience is a real beautiful thing in knowing that. But obviously when you're growing up, especially when you work in sport, it's hard to understand because we're so desperate for success at times, but don't become too desperate for success that we forget how good the journey is along the way as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a really powerful point you mentioned there as well in terms of that word of saying no. I think usually comes with a lot of negative connotations, or that person that's at the end of that is going to be feeling quite distressed or upset. But actually there are times and periods where it's done for your own well-being to look after oneself. And I think another piece that you mentioned as well with regards to we are all really good at hearing and feeling those emotions that we have. And sometimes what can really be really beneficial with this is engaging in a task that I call Socratic questioning. So when we feel overly distressed, overly nervous, pre-game, post-game, or just any time in life, asking yourself, what is it about the situation that's making me feel this way? Not just focusing on the emotion in of itself. No, thank you so much for this today. This was great, really appreciate it. And for any great activities to take your game to the next level, please continue to keep up with us on the YouTube channel. Thank you all, see you soon.